You have already forgotten this, so I will repeat. When we talk about constructive journalism, we talk about three, what we call pillars of the house. The overall ambition is to contribute to democracy through a critical but constructive journalism. And in order to do that, there are three ways. Focus on solutions, not only the problem, but start with the problem, and then add ways out and hope. But that doesn't always do the trick. That even though we apply solutions, that's not enough. So sometimes people just want to know, giving them explainers, explain something complicated, not angling on the black or the white, covering nuances. And the last one is find ways in which you engage people in a dialogue. Not just giving them access to comment on what you have produced, but invite them already before you start your story, while you're researching, invite people to a town hall meeting, find ways to listening to them and all that. So we'll get back to that, but before, you did lousy yesterday in the F test, remember that? You were not really good at that. So I thought we should give you a new chance. So I have here a little test, which is very easy. So, and it's a few years old, but it still works. But I have to explain it to you. The test is, and now I take it very slowly because you had a very long day yesterday. So a man buys a DVD. You do remember DVDs, right? For 78 Danish crowns in the video store. You remember video stores? You don't. No. But there was video stores on the street, right? And pays with a check, and you don't know what a check is, but you know what a check is, right? Piece of paper that you could, let's tell, 100 euros or something. And in this case, it's a check of 100 Danish crowns. Okay, so far it's easy, right? You got that one. So the owner of the video store does not have 22 Danish crowns in cash, so he has to go next door to his neighbor. That's the vegetable man. And he changes the customer's check to 100 Danish crowns in cash, returns to his shop, and hands over the man the DVD and the change. Right? You got it? Yeah. A couple of days later, the bank returns the check due to insufficient funds. And the video guy has to pay back his good neighbor with 100 Danish crowns, right? In the first place, the video man paid 39 Danish crowns for the DVD. So now I'm just asking you a simple question. How big is his total loss? So raise your arm if you have a suggestion. What? It's very easy. How much is it? You. How much is it? What about you? You write about economics, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? You shouldn't be puzzled. You should just give me a number. It makes sense.
What was the last one? In the first place, the video man paid 39.
When he bought...
First place is his place.
No, first place. I mean, in the beginning, in order to sell something, you have to buy it somewhere. So he bought this DVD, put it into his shop, and he bought it for 39 Danish crowns. And then he can sell it for 79. That's called a profit. That's normal. That's how they make it. Huh? He gained 39 Danish crowns. That's interesting. Anyone else? What about you? 178. At least. Okay. Now I have translated it. I hope the translation is good. So I translated into your language. Right? Does it work? Does it say the same thing? It was Google Translate, so it says the same thing, right? Make it easier for you? You got it?
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same. So, okay. This is what we do now. If you have to stand up now. Would you stand up? Get up. So this is what is called in front of the room. If you have a number, if you think the total loss is between 0 to 50, you go over here by the blue screen. If you think it's 51 to 75, you go up here at this desk. If you think it's from 76 to 100, you go over that blue one. If you think the right number is from 100 and to 150, you go down there. And if you think the right number is between 151 to 200, you can go down there to our very talented sound guy. Yeah, that's you, down there, okay? If you have a number which is higher than 200 Danish crowns, you can go to lunch. Okay? But you can go to lunch, you have to pay it yourself. Okay, are you ready? Now you get 2 minutes to stand in the right corner. And it starts now. Okay. Your job is to figure out how much is the total loss and stand in the right corner.
So what is in the middle?
The middle one is 51 to 75. It's up here.
And over 100?
Over 100, that's down there. If it's between 101 to 150. Okay, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Yeah, I don't know. That depends what the number is. 61. Then you should be here. And you have 1 minute left, which is a lie. You only have 50 seconds. That's not an option, sir, to stand in the middle. 30 seconds. You have to stand in the right corner. 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. You move. You move to where you are. Okay, that's good. Ivan, you're running out of time. 3, 2, 1. Ivan. 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 It's over. Stand up here. Ivan. Ivan. Oh, my dear Ivan. Okay. Let me hear. What is the number you agree on down here?
117.
117? I've never heard that before. 117. That's interesting. You must explain. What is your number? And then you just moved away. And what about you up here?
61.
Okay. Let's talk about what happened. Could you move a little bit so people can see the screen? So, what is happening here? First of all, we think the way we normally think, right? Then we make up our minds too fast because we pressured for time, even in areas where we are completely incompetent. That's the reason why you're a journalist. Besides you, we can't count. We don't do math. We are very bad at math. The second thing, then we look for confirmation on our own way of thinking. And we ignore facts which do not correspond with our own line of thinking. The second thing, then we seek the company of people who think exactly the same way as we do. And we spend time reassuring each other that the other people are stupid, right? That's what you did. And you said, what the hell are they doing there? They're completely idiots. Then we spend time persuading others why we're right, rather than being curious. I didn't see very many people go to another group and ask the following question, why do you stand there? How do you think? Yeah, but you did. But I saw a lot of people going over to another group and say, hey, come over here, you idiot. Why? You must, come on. And if I press you to even more, you would grab them by the hand and drag them, right?
Oh, we were asking why.
Yeah, but that's good. A few of you dig that. So the point of this is, which is also part of the program here, right? So listening to those with whom we disagree with is really annoying. But it can help us get inspiration. It can challenge our own way of thinking and inspire to better solution. But it demands that sometimes we shut up and listen. And now you don't want to listen to me anymore because you just want to know who's right? Right? Who's right? So a team and journalism has become the art of teamwork. In the old days, you were sitting in a little office by yourself, but now in order to produce these stories, we have to work with people who are not like us, graphic people, AI people, IT guys, photographers, whatever, in order to tell the stories in the right way. So we need to listen to people who are different from us. But it only works if we understand exactly this and respect it. And everything in our minds say we want to be close to the people who are like me. Those are the people you drink coffee with in the office. And you eat lunch with them. And sometimes you even eat pizza at night with them. And you sit there and reassure each other how everybody else is stupid. Right? So the point is not who was right. The point was how you approach this. And I hope there was a little learning in it. But it's very easy, this. But you were just getting confused. It's easy. What is leaving his pocket? That's what we're asking for, right? First 39 when he bought it. Then 22 when he gave back the cash. 39 plus 22, that's 61. Everything else is noise, right? So the right answer, and more people, and you had a strategy. First you said, how could we talk to each other and have what are our arguments for this? Do we agree? And then you went out and tried to tell other people how you thought. And that, for some people, it worked. But you didn't solve it. You were not 70%. But if you had 5 more minutes, maybe you could have done it, right? So, but the point is, it is 61. But that's not the point. The point is listening louder. Thank you. You can sit down. Well done. So, based on this experience, now for the rest of the day, I would like you to be specific on the ideas of constructive journalism. I would like you to divide yourself into groups of 3 or 4. Maybe we can just take the different tables here. You're one group, you're one group, you're one group. And I give you half an hour to the following. You could either go to your own or to a website of one of the news organizations you're working with. Look for a story. Is there any stories about Ukrainian refugees? And see if you can apply one or more of the 3 pillars of constructive journalism to it. When you have done that, you could also, if you can't find any, which might be the case, then you could start thinking about which story would you really like to do when you come home. I mean, really like, if you had enough time and enough money. What would be a really, really great way of approaching this? What would you love to do? And don't think, oh, I have to do it in 1 hour on Tuesday. No, thinking that this is, first you have to have the ambition and the dream of it, and then you can outline it, and then you have to sell it, the idea, to some editor or other people who should make sure that this is what we prioritize in the news. So either a concrete story based on what is happening in the news today, or if you can't find that, talk about a dream story you would love to do. Okay? You get half an hour until, so be back here 1:15. You can say here, or you can go out, or you can do whatever. But be back and let one of you talk and explain to the rest of us, what have you found out, which story, how will you approach it, and why do you think that will be a good story? Okay? I will give you a piece of paper. So you can see this. Any questions, by the way? Okay, see you half an hour.
we choose a very actual topic about the Ukrainian truck drivers who are queuing in the Ukraine and Slovak borders in eastern Slovakia.
We have
The-
the same topic.
The queue,
That's okay. That's okay. Then you can compete.
Yeah. The queue is like 15-kilometer long, and the background, if I may explain, is that the EU recently prolonged the exception for Ukrainian truck drivers companies to enter the EU with less formal bureaucracy and formality. So a lot of other companies, for example, from Turkey, established the truck drivers companies in Ukraine, and they sort of misused this exception. So the drivers are Ukrainians, the cars are Ukrainian, but the owner of the companies not necessarily be Ukrainian. They can be Turks or, I don't know, Bulgarian. So, but the Slovak people and Slovak Association of Truck Drivers are blaming Ukrainians are guilty for this and they are stealing our jobs because the price for the shipping goes down because Ukrainian drivers get paid less than Slovak and the bureaucracy is less and so etc.
Very good example.
The insurance is cheaper.
A recipe for conflict.
Recipe. We would like to elaborate this story with going to the eastern border and to interview truck drivers. But we know that maybe he's afraid of losing job, so he could refuse to answer us. So maybe we can find the owners of some companies, shipping companies, and interview the owners. So what's your point of view on this? And because they actually use the legal option that EU offers them, and also if we can ask if there is a sort of solidarity with Polish truck drivers because they are blocking already the borders for 1 week or 2 weeks. So there is one moment that maybe Slovakian Truck Drivers Association start to block. They want to block the borders on Friday. So there might be solidarity with Polish truck drivers, or it's selfishment and they just claim that it's purely about our money.
But a great subject, and there are a lot of traditional ways you could approach that, covering what's happening, interviewing each side, and blah, 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 all that. How would you add constructive elements to that?
That actually we can point that it's bad to blame the Ukrainian side. We can address this issue to EU where this issue was created because they decided for the exception. So we can ask in Brussels, like, you see that this exception caused some problems in Eastern Europe. So what would you do with this? Is this exception really good, or it's gonna be shorter, or it's gonna be prolonged, or I would address this to the Brussels bureaucrats. Yeah.
Good. But one of the things, first of all, what we talked about with the pillar 2, which is, okay, explain things. And there are a lot of things that needs to be explained. I don't know if you ever follow the guy at BBC called Ross Atkins. And he's extremely good. He was a former news anchor at BBC and suddenly thought, I need to do something better. And he started to do explainers, a video. Could be 6, 5, 8-minute long videos that only is published not every day, not necessarily at a certain time, but each time there's a subject that is complicated, he and his team will go in. In the beginning, it was only him. Now he has a little team around him. But he goes in and explains stuff exactly like this one. He's done the other day, he did one about the Gaza conflict. Try to explain it. Why is this happening? What is going on? And in Danish we'll say, what is up and down in this? And I think there's a big need before you do anything else to say, okay, you can even say, okay, here are key questions. What is actually happening now? And you tell shortly what is happening. Protest happening in Poland, blah, blah, all that. Then what's the argument on this side? What's the argument on the other side? And what's the reason for the conflict now? And then you can talk about the EU. And so you haven't taken a stand, but you're explaining and exploring and reducing complexity. So that's that part. You could also decide, okay, we will try to take an initiative here. If you were completely crazy, you would say, okay, we invite now a representative from EU, representative from Ukrainian truck drivers, representative from the Slovakian truck drivers, representative from the Minister of Transportation in Slovakia, whatever, and the owner of a truck company in whatever, Turkey, whatever, and you bring them into a room, and if you don't dare doing it yourself, you could hire a mediator to figure out how do you enter a room of conflict and have people who are really mad talk to each other. And I explain this because we have done quite a few experiments to do that. And in order to learn how do you do that, we were inviting people from other professions who were very good at entering a room of conflict and get people who hate each other to talk. We can learn so much from marriage counselors. How do they work? Meaning also, how do people sit? What's on the table? What do they drink? What does she answer? What does she ask? In what tone of voice? Who says what when? Who is giving the word? And how is she working in order to do that? And we are very bad at that in journalism because we have been trained just to give the microphone. Can you say something bad about the other one? And then we think we're done. But this way, in order to say, we want really to understand, could you please explain, and how are your emotions, and how do you see the world from your side? We also had hostage negotiators to train some of the journalists. That's a room of conflict, right? We will kill your daughter if you don't give me 100 million kroners, right? So how do you start the dialogue between those people?
Maybe may I add something?
Sure.
That maybe we can add the moment that not all the shipments are for profit, but a lot of shipments from Ukraine are actually humanitarian stuff, and they are queuing as well. So they are not just for profit.
So it's also what's the consequence of this? I mean, a lot of goods cannot come in, even that. But that's still the regular one. That's asking what and when and who and why and all that. The good constructive questions in this case will be, okay, now what? Could you call the EU people and say, you passed this law, now I'll explain to you what is happening in our part of Europe, and was that the intention? And how do you think that could be about? And then you could involve members of European Parliament and talking about from Slovakia and get them to talk. I mean, the whole idea that we explain what has happened, what the conflict is, and then don't think we are done there, but ask these questions that we sometimes forget, which is not about taking stands. It's not about saying, oh, now we should make Slovakian audiences, decision makers, and truck drivers understand that the poor Ukrainians are in a situation that it should be okay. That's not your job. Your job is, I guess, basically to enlighten people, but also inspire to potential solutions to it. At least create a situation where it's easier to understand each point. Why is there conflict? Why is this happening? And if you explain it as you just did now, it's easy to understand why there's a conflict. Because who's right? Both sides are right. But what are the strategies or what are the scenarios for solving this? What could be done? One scenario is they won't agree and it will just go on and the queue will be 200 kilometers long and there will no goods coming out of Ukraine through Slovakia, and then what? Or all the Slovak transportation sector will die because blah, 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 right? So, does that make sense? Yeah. And would that be a good story that you would like to do if you had time?
Actually, I proposed it to my editor-in-chief, and I'm doing an interview tomorrow, so yeah, it will be done.
And remember, if we ask different questions, we get different answers. How could this be solved is a good one. Do you understand the other side is another good one. Would it take a lot of more time to do a story like that?
Yeah, of course, because the interview is just the beginning. It's just one side.
Yeah.
Will be interviewed. So definitely, if we want to elaborate, we have to do more stuff, definitely.
Sure. Any questions to this group? Huh? Any questions? Would you like to read or follow a story like that? Would that be more engaging or more relevant? Even though it was longer and more complicated, but you had different voices, and you say, now you're doing that. Would that be at all something you think that your audience would care for? What do you think?
Well, personally, I have to speak to the mic.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I'm not. It's just not really my topic of interest. But if
Truck drivers.
Yeah.
Is that really so?
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. But if we look at the audience of the particular media, I think it depends on that, and it's relevant for them. And for sure, if it is much better to go into deep in this kind of topic and to have different perspectives. So I'm sure that the audience would love to. I'm just not the one of the audience. That's it.
No, that's true. A question about, okay, it will. One thing is you can do the story tomorrow, and you will call or you will go there and you will interview one of the truck drivers or what, and then that's it, and you have a story, of course. But if you want to do all the things we talked about, that would take more time, right? So the good question is, how do you get more time? And yesterday we talked about the idea of that people feel overwhelmed. People don't ask for more, they ask for better. So if I could add a few words about that. At DR, when I was there, we had some budget cuts. And we had to, for the first time in years, we had to lay off people. And in the first round of budget cut was easy, because then we just took all the lazy people and people who didn't produce anything but got a salary, right? That happens in public service somewhere, especially in the old days. Next time we had a budget cut, it was more difficult, but then we fired all the annoying people, to be honest. Next time again, then we were in trouble because there were only good people left. And so what? And we knew we had to get rid of some, and the rest of the people had to do their work as well. That is what's happening in newsrooms right now, right? And so we said, what do we do now? And we remembered the idea, maybe, how many stories do we produce per day in our newsroom? We were 500 people, and that was reduced to 450. So we counted, and it turned out we did close to 400 stories per day in our newsroom. Radio, TV, online, big stories, small stories, social media, 400 stories. And then we said, what will happen if we cut that down to 250? So we did. In our big news programs, before we had 18 subjects a day. Small and long.
What was the duration?
Huh?
1 hour duration?
Half an hour. And so we decided to cut it down to 8. So 8 stories, because people who really were interested were following it online during the day, but there we were cleaning up the mess, giving people 8 stories of the most important stories that we could give. But we added more reporter to each story. And each story, or each element, because we divided stories into different elements, so it was easier to absorb and do. But we cut that down. And we did the same online, and we did the same in basically every program. And we shared much more. Now I understand there's a discussion here whether you should split again radio and TV, which is completely crazy, unless your argument is that you want to make sure that none of them can do good journalism, or you want to spend too much money. If that's the case, then I can see it, but it's not good for democracy or public. But the idea of working together in a newsroom is about sharing research, sharing ideas, because a TV viewer is also a radio listener and is also using the mobile phone at some point. So instead of having 2 websites, you have 1. So, one thing. But we were not very good at sharing stories. But in order to cut down on that, we created groups of people working together, and their job was to serve Danes with stories, both online, both TV, and both social media and that. So with the group together, they worked together. So journalism was becoming the art of teamwork. My point with this story is, how many people do you think, when we have implemented this, calling us every day and saying, hey, guys, you cheated us for 150 stories yesterday? Nobody complained. I don't think anybody found out. But what they found out was that the stories we produced were much better told. And at the same time, we stopped talking about TV2 in Denmark, which we did all the time, our main competitor. So every editor in the newsroom would start talking about the stories that TV2 had that we didn't have. So we had to do following up on TV2 stories next day, which was completely baloney. So instead we said, we don't want to talk about them anymore. Now we talk about what do we want to do, and what are the stories we want to follow up. So the moment we did those 2 things, for the first time our numbers started to grow. The trust level started to grow. And for the first time, we were beating TV2. Online, radio, they don't do radio, so that was easy, but on TV. So in order to get more time to do what you really want to do, you have to take something away. Because you don't have time. It's not an option to make you work harder than you do, because you work hard enough. And if you are forced to do it anyway, the quality will go down, and you will get stressed, and you will prefer to drive Uber taxis instead. So we have to dare cutting down on the amount of stories. And I will tell you another little anecdote about the most successful digital news company in our little country is a startup. They're now 6 years old. After 6 years, they're only digital. They started from scratch. Started by 4 journalists working at legacy media who got sick and tired of their work. They quit, they didn't know what to do, and they said, we want to start something for ourselves. But they didn't know what to do. They experimented with long format stories or whatever. They didn't know, and it didn't work out until they started finding out what they wanted to do. 6 years later, they are the biggest digital news, they have the biggest audience for digital. 50,000 people, they call them members, pay for this content, which is twice as much as one of the biggest newspapers, because they have been lousy at that, because they were defending their own print subscriptions for far too long, right? The average age of a subscriber at a Danish newspaper today is about 70 years old. The average age of their members are 41. normal newsroom in Denmark produce 200, 300, 400 stories per day. And we talked yesterday about that demands that every reporter will write 2, 3, 5, 4, 8 stories per day. Not leaving the newsroom. They will be taken over by chatbots. This little company, they now have 70 reporters employed, which is a big newsroom. No, 70. 70. Do you know how many stories they produce every day? 2. And then an overview, a small story. What's the most important? Blah, blah. But 2 original stories per day. And especially young people love it because they clean up the mess. They write very well. Most of their subscribers, or members, they now use it in their ears. Podcast, they use it. They hear it instead of reading it, and it's written with passion. It is told in a personal, curious style, not being activistic, but really personal and curious. They use their curiosity, not their point of view, as an engine, which is a very, very intelligent third way instead of being objective or subjective. Right? They use that. Just to say, there is a model for this. People who dare cutting things away in order to have time to do what they really want to do. So that they do that extremely well. We just nominated one of their journalists to the Danish equivalent of the Pulitzer Prize because it was a story she did about young people's use of screens, phones, gaming, all that. Because she started saying, I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's now the only one in my class who do not have a smartphone. Should I give one to her or shouldn't I? What's the impact? What does science know? What is good? What is bad? What's the challenges? What is that? And with that story, being very curious, asking members from the very beginning, I wanted to look into that. Do you have any ideas? What do you think? Who should I talk to? And it became a collective process, finding out with her as the helper. And with that, she is now changing legislation in Denmark. All schools had giving out iPads to all school children. They were all sitting with their phone. And now almost any school, in half a year, any schools are taking students' mobile phones. They can only get them when they go home. There's a waiting list for these cupboards, so you can buy, and so you put the phones in there. And now there's a growing demand for books because the government has made a 180-degree U-turn saying, we have thought that we should make everybody digital all the time, but we can now see that's not good because you don't learn so well as you do when they can't concentrate. So now we have to revise our thinking about this. Due to one journalist who started thinking, what will be the best thing for my daughter? That's a pretty good. And she was not angling the story on a crook or a victim. We're all crooks. Parents, we're crooks. We are giving our teenage boys access to playing PlayStation in the basement all time, and when he gets a backache, we buy a good chair, a gamer chair for him. Crazy are we, right? They go out, and science show they have not social skills, and they are isolated, and they are not striving, and we have done a lot of bad stuff. All of us being parents. But we have to know in order to not being lectured, but somebody, what does science really tell us? What can we learn? So, very long example to just the point. In order to do what you really want to do, you have to cut down on something which is irrelevant. Right? Okay, thank you very much. Let's have you guys. Who will do the trick? And you need a microphone, otherwise I will get in trouble. Here you go.
Thank you. So as we have the same topic, I will really point out 3 key questions. we would approach this problem. The first one is
What was the story?
the story is the same. So
Same story.
the
Okay.
same story, yes. So I would just really concentrate now on the concept you propose to be the best ever. So first, how interconnected we are. So let's have a bigger picture of the problem. So if we have trackers striking at the front line from Poland, soon from Slovakia, it's not only a question of Poland, of Slovakia, of Ukraine, but pretty soon of Hungary, of Moldova, etc.
And Denmark.
We basically are speaking about the European Union. So first question, bigger picture. And this is how we come to do the good for society. Second, how this situation will change your everyday life. Your Elena in Slovakia, yours Piotr in Warsaw, yours Andrei or Andrew somewhere else. Second, I'm speaking about dumping. We are speaking about dumping. Third, what are the proposals? How to share the common market of the European Union that is not equally common for members and non-members. And that's the problem. And this is how we can really come closer, get a proximity, either to the viewer, to a listener, to a reader, to a podcast listener, and we will answer and come to the goal, do the good for the society. You will understand why this topic is relevant for everybody. So this is basically everything. And the colleague who has just left proposed some steps. We also proposed some steps, but I think that this is how I would do the story.
Yeah.
And I basically have nothing else to add. All the rest
But it's
is hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Hard work to find the people, to find professionals. I personally interviewed one professor from the Economic University here in Bratislava, who, without saying anything biased, said it's a question of dumping.
But I think you say something extremely important things. First you say, let's go up in the helicopter and see it from above. What is this really about?
Yes.
And then say, what's the relevance? Not importance, but relevance. Relevance means for me, right?
Yes.
So what does it mean for each and one of us, what is going on? And then the helicopter perspective is also this is an example of EU and a country that we are now allowing some of the privileges being inside EU without really thinking about what's the consequence there and what could we do about that. And so just thinking, what have they done differently? For instance, there are other countries, Norway, for instance, is not a member of EU, but they have some rules. But Norwegian truck drivers can't go to Denmark, but they have to live up to certain standards, which is within EU, in order to get access to the market, right? So that could also be a question. What can we learn from other neighboring countries to EU, who's not a member of EU, but is still interacting? Could we do same thing with Ukraine? So Ukrainians will not be used for cheap labor, dumping, right, as you say. I think it's really, really important. And that goes beyond just going to the border and asking people, why are you here
That's
and
the
why?
hard work.
That's a hard work, but that's what people want to pay us for.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. Would that be a story that you would like to read?
Teraz sa počujeme? Musím sa odosobniť, lebo tú tému práve spracúvam a bol som aj na hranici, aj v Poľsku, aj na Slovensku. Mám takú profesionálnu dilemu v tom, že ako to vlastne priniesť, lebo ak by som to mal urobiť naozaj len z profesionálneho hľadiska, tak by asi pravdepodobne tí Ukrajinci z toho vyšli nie celkom dobre a rovnako aj Európska únia, kompetentní predstavitelia Európskej únie. Takže to pozitívne východisko, konštruktívne by mohlo byť aj v tom, že vytvoriť istý spoločenský tlak a prostredníctvom volených predstaviteľov Európskej únie, europoslancov a možno aj nejakých osobných kontaktov, pretože súčasný podpredseda Európskej komisie je Slovák, volá sa Maroš Šefčovič a je to jeho agenda do istej miery. Má na starosti medziinštitucionálne vzťahy a strategický výhľad, takže mal by možnosť prejaviť sa ako konštruktívny politik. Ale keď sa vrátim na pôdu toho materiálu, ktorý vlastne je na stole a ktorý aj by som mal v najbližších dňoch finalizovať, tak by som si dovolil byť aj možno nie celkom profesionálny a viac by som zdôrazňoval ten ľudský rozmer, pretože naozaj medzi tými šoférmi kamionov je mnoho seniorov, ktorí sú tam iba preto, lebo ich synovia padli v boji za slobodu, takže oni sa vlastne starajú ako živitelia rodín o vnúčatá a prostredníctvom takýchto príbehov, ktoré by mohli viesť k väčšiemu citliveniu spoločnosti, väčšej spoločenskej empatii, by som sa snažil stlmiť ten negatívny dopad tej informácie, ktorá je v konečnom dôsledku predsa len kontraproduktívna. Aj čo sa týka Ukrajiny ako samotného ukázačskej krajiny.
Yeah, and you talk about a dilemma, and I see it very clearly. On one hand, we have to be sensitive and understand. On the other hand, good journalism is also it's about tell it as it is. In German, they say "sagen was ist." And if you're sure you present the facts in a neutral way, and that's the way it is. And you have also put faces and arguments from both sides. I think we should be extremely reluctant to take the personal standpoint and say we want to leave something out because somebody could misuse that. Because that would create a feeling that you're not to be trusted because you have taken a personal stand here. I mean, it is a dilemma for you as a journalist how to do it. It's also a dilemma for the European Union, how to be helpful to Ukraine without destroying the market for EU member states and all that. But if journalism is not the one who brings everything out in the light, the good and the bad, the happy and the sad, who should do that? So I think we have to, of course, first of all, we must give people the best obtainable version of the truth. And part of the truth is also, as you said, some of these people who are Ukrainian truck drivers, they come from a situation which is exactly as you described. So tell that story. But there are also Slovakian truck drivers who might lose their job because of social dumping or dumping in the labor market. So how do we present that? I think by presenting it all during the total coverage, and then make people make up their own minds. And then, of course, in your paper, you can write an editorial what you think, but don't put it into your journalism. Because if we do, we will lose we will pay with credibility. But I think if you do what you have discussed here, you will complicate the narrative. You will explain why this is relevant. You will explain why this is complicated. You will explain what is really at stake here. And where can this be solved, right? So you have, more than anything, you have created you have used pillar 2, as we would say. You have really put a lot of perspective and a lot of nuances into it. Is that a finger? Yeah.
Počujeme sa. Jednak tá téma ma nenadchla, ako povedala kolegyňa, že neveľmi sa mi páči. A ale keďže sme boli skupina, tak sme tvorili a mňa vyrušila jedna vec, že v roku 2018 naši autodopravcovia mali problém s tým, že Európska komisia, alebo Európa, neviem kto teraz presne, sťažil im fungovanie tým, že vysielanie pracovníkov na trh. To znamená, že sa im zvýšili náklady, museli sa prispôsobiť tej Európskej únii a tým pravidlám. A tam bol znovu ten dumping a znovu vlastne voči ako keby našej krajine. Čiže sa to ako keby dvakrát zopakovalo a neviem, to ma pritom vyrušuje, že je to ako keby dvakrát tá istá téma.
I was thinking, would there also be an enlightenment of people telling how many truck drivers working in your country come from other countries? I mean, if everybody who are not Slovakian would have been taken out of the transportation industry tomorrow, how would that look? Taxi drivers, bus drivers, train drivers, truck drivers, how would that look? So I guess a lot of Slovakian will think that every time somebody from the outside go in and have a job in the transportation sector in Slovakia, he will take the job of a Slovakian person. Is that true? Would there be enough people who want to work in the transportation sector in Slovakia? Most likely you will be in big trouble. In Denmark, we will be in big trouble if we didn't have immigrants or even refugees who were helping us in the farming industry, cleaning industry, transportation industry, service industry. And a lot of people do not know that because we never tell them that. We only talk about when there's a problem with them. So thank you for that comment. Let's take the last group. You guys.
All right. So I'll try to be brief, but also explain somehow.
But also good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll also explain somehow our objective, and as a topic we picked to focus on women in labor market in Slovakia, which is super relevant. With this idea, we wanted to mainly increase the awareness of the societies. So when we were thinking about the solutions, we came up to the fact that first of all we talk about it.
What's the problem?
Openly.
What's the problem?
The main problem is that most of the women that are coming here, they are employed in very low qualified jobs.
And you're talking about Ukrainian women coming
coming to Slovakia. Although a lot of them, they have high education, they speak different languages, but still they cannot be accredited. So we decided to pick a person or different people with their occupations before, for example, doctors, because doctors is a specific field in medicine, medical occupation, the specific field in Slovakia, and this is super hard to actually start working here because they need accreditation, they need to pass the exams that are super expensive, they have to have the level of language C2 and so on. So what are the proposals is that we choose one story of the woman who is a doctor and she wants to be here, and we try to somehow portray that why she cannot apply for the job, for example, as a doctor. We proposed also to pick someone from the Ministry of Social Affairs, because we think that this is the person who would be able to answer the questions, like what are the opportunities and what are they doing. Because, for example, there is already a program where the ministry is having the courses, the language courses specifically for the jobs, for the occupations, right? And also we wanted to give a different perspective from different countries of European Union. For example, what is happening abroad and what kind of projects they have abroad. Because in other countries, I'm not sure what was the country there. It was Greece or some other country when they actually give doctors from Ukraine some period of time to work as a nurse, and then they can proceed to be at the higher position. So also focus on good practices and somehow see how we can apply this in Slovakia. Also, we had an idea to do some kind of a roundtable discussion where we can invite two women, for example, from Ukraine, and also someone from ministry or someone from the politicians for them to talk in front of the camera, because this is what we perceive as a huge challenge and issue in Slovakia, that actually politicians, ministries, they don't talk to people, they don't have this kind of connection. So kind of to put them into a situation when they actually have this direct conversation, and this is the idea. We're not sure still about the solution, like will they come to the actual solution or not, because this is kind of a huge topic and a lot of people are involved in this.
But you are asking the right questions, because you're saying what have neighboring countries done? And it's always a great thing, because either you are doing much better here than the other countries, that's a story, or you actually find somewhere where they actually found a way that is an idea that you could ask people with power to say, here's what they've done, could we do the same thing? And if not, do you have another idea? Because now I can tell you it could be solved. So I think you do a lot of great stuff here, also trying, of course, to make it a personal thing. So you see this woman now working, getting up at 3 a.m, cleaning some factory, whatever, and you actually find a picture back from Kiev when she was a doctor. And you show those two pictures. How stupid is that? That we need qualified doctors and people working in the healthcare industry, and we make them to either stay at home or we make them clean our floors, right? Is that a better way of doing that? And you have to see that in order to see that's crazy. We need to do something different, right?
And also the idea to invite people from the government is also to reflect somehow that the war is still ongoing and the time is going further, but the solutions that they are proposing right now in the country are still replying to the needs of these first stages of war, when people actually needed just the basic home and food and like basic supplies. But the time is going, and like the solutions have to be different now. So this is also like one kind of objective of this roundtable discussion for the media.
I think it's brilliant, and I just mention a series. One of my good colleagues, who's one of the best investigative reporters in Denmark, I hired him to run our fellowship program because he's really, really good. And he was the first journalist in Denmark. I actually hired him to be the first journalist to do as having immigration and integration as a beat. So he was the first one actually doing a lot of stories of immigration and the problems with it and how to solve it. So in the first years, he did a lot of stories about the problems with it. And one of the problems each year was there was a report coming out, especially about women. Immigrant women in Denmark, how many of them did not have a job? And it was always 50, 60% of them did not have a job. And then it was easy in the beginning for him because he could present the facts, and then he would go to the populist party and say, what do you think about that? And they would basically say, well, we don't need them, kick them out, they're not integrated, they're terrible people, blah, blah, blah. So basically giving them a platform to talk about what they wanted to do. At some point, he got an idea, which was if 50% of the immigrant women do not have a job, that must logically mean that 50% of the immigrant women do have a job. So he did a series, which was extremely important for the understanding in Denmark, about women of immigrant background who got a job. So he went out and did stories of them, filmed them, documented them, let them talk, but then asked them, what did you do that other women could learn from? And talking to employers as well. What's your experience with these people? What would you recommend other employers to do in order to get some more out, right? So that changed the conversation, and that is nuances, right? Because it's exactly that. There's a problem here, but there's also somebody we can learn from. And seeing that and painting the both sides of that picture makes it much better. Sorry?
Vlastne, počujeme sa? No vlastne, čo sa týka včerašného workshopu, tak chcela som povedať, že tá téma, akože vy ste hovorili o pozitívnych správach, tak vlastne ja mám akože z tej oblasti pozitívny príbeh Ukrajinky, ktorá prišla sem a mala vysokoškolské vzdelanie a ona ešte tiež pracovala kosmetičkou na Ukrajine a prišla sem a bola upratovačkou. Pracovala upratovačkou a dezinfikovala 4 poschodia jednej laboratórii. A hovorila, že ona je kráľovná dezinfekcií, tak to ona seba podporovala, lebo práca nebola akože cca vhodná pre ňu. A potom ona sa rozhodla, že pôjde niekde ďalej a ona skončila tie kurzy, potvrdzujúce ju kvalifikáciu a už pol roka pracuje, prenajmala jeden salón s druhými Ukrajinkami a pracuje kosmetičkou. Čiže ten príbeh, akože kľudne aj tento pozitívny by mohol ísť, ako ukázať, že to sa dá spraviť.
Yes, it can be done, and who will learn from it? The other Ukrainian women who hear about that, they will learn, that's something, it can actually happen. Somebody can do it, why can't I? The public in Slovakia will get a much more nuanced picture about these people and be more enlightened. And the decision makers will say, we have a giant resource here that we could use in a better way. What would it take to use it better? Instead of it ending like the truck drivers, we use them at cheap labor force, dumping, right? So I think what you're talking about here is, it's not positive journalism, because positive journalism, it's just nice stories about something cute, right? But that's why wording is important. Vocabulary is important. So if you talk about constructive journalism, that means having a beneficial purpose. That's the direct translation of constructive. And that's why I thought nobody could be against the word constructive, which was a damn lie. A lot of old journalists think, we shouldn't do that, because they misinterpret what the idea is. But if you get it, it is, you can't be constructive unless there's a well-documented problem to be constructive about. So you have to document there's a problem with a lot of Ukrainian women who can't find a job or use their qualifications. But if you only tell that story, then we all sit there saying, oh, shit. If there'll be more Ukrainian refugees, more problems. But if you can give a trustworthy picture of there's actually a way out and hope, then we can do that. So thank you very, very much for that. We should wrap up soon. You should remember that Martin Luther King, remember him? He did not mobilize. He did not mobilize by saying to people, I have a nightmare. Right? He mobilized by saying, I have a dream. So hope. We have been very good, and those 2 days here has been about our profession, our journalistic culture is so focused on getting the attention from people by talking to the fear of people. And that's very efficient, because the humankind, we have been trained since the Stone Age to be very aware of things that is dangerous. Because if we were not, a rattle in the grass, there might be a saber tiger jumping out and eating our children, right? So we have to be aware constantly. And we have been using that to constantly say, breaking news, there's a fallen tree in Indonesia. This can also be dangerous. You can also die of this. To a degree where people are getting sick and tired of it. So psychologists will tell you that there's one force which is stronger in the human mind than fear, and that is hope. Hope is the reason why we get up every morning and think, today must be better than yesterday. That is what has made man survive. So before we stop, any comments on, is there any, what have you thought about it? You may say you think it's stupid and irrelevant, but what do you think about it? And is there one thing you want to take away from here that you think is useful? One thought. Would you, each of you think about that? And then before we wrap up, just say that. Will you start? And you can get a microphone.
Hello?
Yeah?
Yeah. So what I want to take from here, first of all, it's inspiration. That inspiration you gave all of us. Because it's really important. Without them, it's impossible to make a good material. Doesn't matter in which kind of journalistic. So thank you very much for this. And of course, I learned for myself a lot of new.
Okay.
And I will use it in future work.
Oh, thank you very much. And next one. I can take it.
Thank you. I started working in journalism not so much time ago. So actually, I never had any journalistic education. So when you at the beginning, when you were talking about the bad story is a good story, that's something that I just discovered for myself really recently. This is the type of article that is selling, that is people are attracted to, they're commenting. And it's for me it's important to see also that this is not
there's an alternative.
Yeah, there is an alternative, and it's important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's good.
I think for me it's very helpful to talk to other people about this, because if I just act according to what I experience in my everyday practice, that will be depressing soon. So,
So you think there's a need, or I phrase it as a question. Do you think there's a need of future journalists, young journalism students, to be taught about this kind of thinking?
I think yes.
Yeah. That was a leading question.
I mean, I don't know how does people who really did 5 years of journalistic school, how do they feel? I don't know.
No. No. But good luck with journalism, and thank you for choosing it. Will you?
Ďakujem. Mňa veľmi inšpirovalo to, čo ste nám ukazovali včera o tých webových portáloch, kde boli tie negatívne slova. A to, že treba zmeniť ten jazyk trochu. A tak trochu nechtiac som sa do toho dostal, keď tu bola šéf-redaktorka SME. A nemal by som to hovoriť, ale vypísaval som si jej negatívne slova, ktoré používala, a bolo ich veľmi veľa. Čiže je na tom, akože aj teraz ste to na konci zopakovali, ten slovník meniť trošku pozitívnejšie, inšpirovať a meniť ten svoj jazyk a celé to poslanie svojho života.
Thanks.
Zdôrazním 3 momenty. Tým prvým je skutočnosť, že toto fórum zjednocuje po dlhej dobe 2 svety, a to sú svety centrálnych médií na strane jednej. Špecifikum Slovenska je také, že prakticky všetky celoplošné médiá sídlia v Bratislave a tá je excentricky postavená, z čoho vyplývajú isté obmedzenia, samozrejme. A navyše máme tu politický systém, ktorý multiplikuje ekonomickú silu v hlavnom meste a tým aj mediálnu silu. Ale život v celej krajine beží aj inými smermi ako v hlavnom meste. A my, ktorí sme viac v regiónoch, a to bol žiak, ktorý mám aj zhruba 400-ročnú skúsenosť z postu šéfredaktora vo verejnoprávnom médiu, tak som konštatoval, že sa tie nožnice otvárali stále viac a viac a že tie svety sa rozchádzali. Toto fórum je dôkazom, že sa dá spolupracovať, že sme na jednej lodi a vďaka MEMO 98 a organizátorom, ktorí sú aj tu prítomní, tak sa podarilo vytvoriť platformu, ktorá je zmysluplná a verím, že aj perspektívna. To je jeden rozmer. Ten druhý rozmer je skúsenosť s dnešným prednášajúcim pánom Ulrikom. My sme zhruba rovnako starí. jeho cesta je inšpiratívna, ja som doteraz o ňom nič nevedel, ale so záujmom som si potom aj prečítal, aj vypočul včerajšiu prednášku a stotožňujem sa so stanoviskom jedného z mladých mužov, ktorého som sem dotiahol vlastne. Je to vysokoškolský pedagóg, ktorý povedal, že sa hýbe na pôde prednášajúcich a prednášok, že za ostatné 4 roky to bolo najlepšie, čo počul. Takže kompliment. Vďaka, že ste aj takto pomohli vrátiť sa ku koreňom, aj mojim osobným, pretože na začiatku mojej novinárskej dráhy, ja som pôvodne matematik, bola taká ambícia slúžiť pravde a potom tými nánosmi profesionálnymi sa to kadejako nie že menilo, ale kreovalo. A toto je také osvieženie, že je to možné. A tretia skúsenosť je to, že všetko zle je na niečo dobré, aj keď tá vojna je veľká tragédia, ale predsa len zvyšuje pravdepodobnosť, že Ukrajina bude členskou krajinou Európskej únie, lebo ona tam naozaj patrí. A už aj vy, ktorí ste dnes stretali na recepcii Ukrajinky a aj tu medzi nami ľudí z Ukrajiny, viete a vidíte, že máme k sebe veľmi blízko. Nebudem zdôrazňovať také narratívy, že slovanské národy a podobne. To nie je o národnosti, to je o tom, či rešpektujeme univerzálne hodnoty demokracie, spravodlivosti, pravdy, práva, alebo či inklinujeme k autokratickým modelom. A ja si myslím, že my sme na tej prvej lodi. A tu sa to potvrdilo a ja som za to vďačný.
Thanks.
Tak ja za seba, ako za človeka, si odnášam nádej, o ktorej sme hovorili, že ešte nie je všetko stratené, že ešte je dostatok hodnotných ľudí, ktorí sú nielen tu v tejto miestnosti, za čo veľmi pekne ďakujem. A hlavne organizátorom celého tohto stretnutia. A ako zástupca Lotosu si odnášam nádej ďalšiu, že tá naša spolupráca týmto nekončí a že pôjdeme ďalej a hlbšie, lebo si myslím, že si to zaslúžime.
Thank you.
Takže už veľa povedali moji predrečníci, ale v podstate ja som tu v nejakých takých 2 alebo dokonca v 3 rovinách, pretože okrem toho, že žijem 30 kilometrov od ukrajinských hraníc celý život, tak ako aj tu kolega z Trebišova, tak vlastne poskytujem aj ubytovanie a každý deň sa stretávam s utečencami, ktorých mám pod svojou strechou, 14 ľudí, takže aj tieto veci som vnímala, takisto ako aj vnímam dennodenne tých ukrajinských prepravcov, ktorí, čo sa nás teda naozaj bytostne týka, sú 900 km od Bratislavy, ale 3 km pred mojim rodným mestom. Rovnako ako aj každý deň, napríklad nie každý deň, to preháňam, ale stáva sa mi, že do práce idem pomedzi Hufnice Zuzana. Stáva sa mi, že idem na záhradu a idem po ceste oproti mne prichádzajú tanky, ktoré sú prekryté bielými plachtami a idú priamo do opravovní. U nás v Michalovciach 30 kilometrov od tých hraníc, od šengenskej hranice, takže bytostne sa ma to týka, okrem toho, že som teda novinár, takže sa pýtate, čo mi tu dalo, takže som naozaj veľmi rada, že som tu. A mám taký pocit, že potrebujeme sami lokálne médiá viacej prepojiť s tými celoštátnymi. Pretože my to všetko môžeme pokryť, ja môžem urobiť osobné rozhovory, osobné príbehy, ale pokiaľ to uvidí iba tých 10 000 mojich divákov, tak je to veľmi málo. Preto sa musia tieto naše príbehy, moje vládové a týchto dostať do tých celoštátnych médií a to je už asi úloha tých ostatných kolegov, ktorí sú tu. A z takého praktického hľadiska, keďže v práci robím všetko, kolegovia sa zo mňa smejú, že som od konateľky, riaditeľky, redaktorky produkčnej až po upratovačku, tak veľmi dobrý príklad bol ten, že zredukovať kvantitu a venovať sa kvalite. Toto je pre mňa gro. Ďakujem.
Thank you.
Yeah, just big thanks for your time and compassion you did this workshop for us. For me personally, a lot of the stuff was not very new, but it was in a kind of restart, reboot, because the everyday job is really squeezing. So, thank you.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
all of you, because finally, after a couple of years, I feel like a privileged professional, sitting here with you and seeing people who really know what is it about, and also new faces who have hope to start something.
Yesterday you said, "I'm not a journalist."
I'm
and
not.
And
I'm not.
would you please now say that you are?
No, I'm not. I referred to my children yesterday, and I said, you know, Jacob, he's 16, a bodybuilder and teenager, and I said, I'm not journalist. I claimed I'm not journalist, and Mama, you are.
You are, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so but it's more to understand this. It's for me personal. Until I climb, I'm not a journalist. I'm trying to be one.
We think you're a journalist.
I'm trying.
You're warm welcome.
Ja som sa presvedčila, že vlastne človek je najväčším zdrojom tej informácií, najväčším cenným zdrojom. A v týchto dňoch vy ste boli tým zdrojom cenným pre nás, a pre mňa, pre nás, ja si myslím. A vy ste ukázali nám tú stránku vlastne žurnalistiky, o ktorej sme nevedeli a možno sme sa zabudli. A pre mňa osobne tie 2 dní bolo také reflexívne a čo sa týka práci ako novinárky a čo sa týka vnútornej ako človeka. A ja si myslím, že to je najdôležitejšie. Ďakujem.
Thank you.
Ja sa tiež budem po slovensky. A ako prvé chcem naozaj poďakovať za tú vašu energiu, za to, čo sme dneska tu dostali. Naozaj je to neuveriteľné. A strašne sa mi páči ten obrazok. Akože osobne ja som to tak pochopila, že musíme byť ako ten človek a hľadať tu naozaj svetlú cestu a tých všetkých ľudí viesť za sebou. Čiže musíme sa naučiť byť tými novinármi, správnymi novinármi, ktorí by mali informovať pravdivo a informovať aj také, nie tie povrchné témy, ale to, čo je naozaj také užšie. Čiže budeme sa snažiť to robiť a naozaj ďakujeme za vašu prácu.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll try to be super brief as always, but I don't really know how to do this apparently. But I just want to thank you for your energy, as everybody said before. But this is super important because I've been to several of capacity building programs with different other areas, but I do believe that capacity building programs for comms, for communication, people, for journalists, whatsoever, it's super important because this is actually when you understand that what you are doing is meaningful and actually makes some sense, not only for you, not for your colleagues, but for the society. So thank you. And I think that this is a gap in Slovak system in general, and I'm thankful for the project, for UN perspective here, for Embassy of Japan perspective as well, because this is super important to have this kind of projects and this kind of meetings as well as the network, because we all work for the same context basically, and we do have to know each other. And it was nice meeting you all, and thank you so much for your expertise. It was super nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And final word, and thank you for all that. And I leave here being really inspired and hopeful. I think when you are born in Western Europe and you don't really spend a lot, you always go on vacation to France. You never really go to Bratislava or Slovakia, where you don't really know what it's all about. and just coming here, walking the streets, talking to you people, and this could just be this could be Belgium, or it could be the Netherlands, or it could be a neighboring country to Denmark. I mean, there's so many things we can learn, and we are on the same plate. You have the same challenges, you have the same, sometimes more competence that we have, but I'm really impressed with the curiosity you all have, and the openness and the experience you have. Some of them compensate with lack of experience with being extremely open and curious about new ways. So I just want to thank you for inviting, and thank you for being so nice to be around. And there will be a tomorrow for journalism. So remember that Obama stole the slogan from Bob the Builder, saying, yes, we can fix it. So, and I think we can fix it, but nobody can fix it alone. We have to work together. We have to continue the conversation about why are we journalists, what can we do, what are the tools we should use in order to regain trust. Because without trust, there's no truth, and without truth, there's no shared reality. And that's our job, to create that. So thank you very much all for being so nice to be around. Okay.